Stew Ball was a racehorse, I wish it was mine. He never drank water, only whiskey or wine. I rode him in France, boys, and I rode him in Spain. He never did lose, boy, only ever did gain. Hello chaps, Paul Curran here. I hope you and all the listeners are well. This coming to you today from sunny, sweltering Devon. The last time I spoke to you from this room, I believe, Storm Ophelia was battering the house. She was certainly divided from her fair senses that night, but now it's all sunshine. And the theme this week is animals. The reason for animals is that this house is already home to Bruce, the black and white pub cat. And yesterday, he was joined by Bruce, the local junior school rabbit. So 2 Bruces, and both furry, which is just as Victoria and her mum and dad, whose home it is, like it. The first poem that I'm going to read today is by William Butler Yeats. Yeats, a giant, of course, of English literature and Irish literature. He received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1923 and founded the Abbey Theatre, was fascinated by Irish folklore, the occult, politics, and this sonnet, later in the Swan, is often regarded as one of the finest poetic works of the 20th century. It recounts the story from Greek mythology of Zeus assuming the form of a swan and attacking the girl Leda, the consequence of which led to the birth of Castor and Pollux and all the trouble that ensued thereafter. William Butler Yeats lived from 1866 to 1939. This is Leda and the Swan. A sudden blow, the great wings beating still above the staggering girl, her thighs caressed by the dark webs, her nape caught in his bill. He holds her helpless breast upon his breast. How can those terrified vague fingers push the feathered glory from her loosening thighs? And how can body laid in that white rush but feel the strange heart beating where it lies? A shudder in the loins engenders there the broken wall, the burning roof and tower, and Agamemnon dead. Being so caught up, so mastered by the brute blood of the air, did she put on his knowledge with his power before the indifferent beak could let her drop? I'm going to read a poem now of my own, one from my first collection, His Only Sonnet, which tells of the death of my family cat, which came as quite a shock. The title of the poem is Samsara Sara. Samsara, the Buddhist and Hinduist term for the cycle of life. This poem also has the title Categoric. How I am sad for not stroking the cat this morning as she died without warning, leaving me lost and more sorry, learning again. When that's that, then that is just that. No legislation, government diktat can fix, hide the fact, or ease the yearning, raw, void, unsated hunger of morning which shuts out the sunshine here like a hat. But although there's no small face at the pane, gentle welcome at the open front door, and there never will come again the warm pawing leap beneath tan-tiled weather vane, or trip risk on hall's same shaded dark floor. We know, in life, she never knew no harm. In 1939, already established after the publication of The Wasteland, and before that the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, Thomas Stearns Eliot produced a book about cats. And it's from that book that the musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber was spawned. And the next poem that I'm going to read is called Gus the Theatre Cat. It's from Eliot's Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats of 1939. Eliot's dates were 1888 to 1965. Gus is the cat at the theatre door. His name, as I ought to have told you before, is really Asparagus. That's such a fuss to pronounce that we usually call him just Gus. His coat's very shabby, he's thin as a rake, and he suffers from palsy that makes his paw shake, yet he was, in his youth, quite the smartest of cats. But no longer a terror to mice and to rats, for he isn't the cat that he was in his prime, though his name was quite famous, he says, in his time, and whenever he joins his friends at their club, which takes place at the back of the neighbouring pub, he loves to regale them, if someone else pays, with anecdotes drawn from his palmiest days. For he was once a star of the highest degree, he's acted with Irving, he's acted with Tree, and he likes to relate his success on the halls, where the gallery once gave him 7 catcalls. But his grandest creation, as he loves to tell, was Fire for Fiddle, the Fiend of the Fell. I have played, so he says, every possible part, and I used to know 70 speeches by heart. I'd extemporise back chat. I knew how to gag, and I knew how to let the cat out of the bag. I knew how to act with my back and my tail. With an hour of rehearsal, I never could fail. I'd a voice that would soften the hardest of hearts, whether I took the lead or in character parts. I've sat by the bedside of poor little Nell. When the curfew was rung, then I swung on the bell. In the pantomime season, I never fell flat, and I once understudied Dick Whittington's cat. But my grandest creation, as history will tell, was Fire for Fiddle, the Fiend of the Fell. Then, if someone will give him a toothful of gin, he'll tell how he once played a part in East Lynne. At a Shakespeare performance, he once walked on pat when some actor suggested the need for a cat. He once played a tiger, could do it again, which an Indian colonel pursued down a drain. And he thinks that he still can, much better than most, produce blood-curdling noises to bring on the ghost. And he once crossed the stage on a telegraph wire to rescue a child when a house was on fire. And he says, "Now then, kittens, they do not get trained as we did in the days when Victoria reigned. They never get drilled in a regular troop, and they think they're smart just to jump through a hoop." And he'll say, as he scratches with his claws, "Well, the theatre's certainly not what it was. These modern productions are all very well, but there's nothing to equal, from what I hear tell, that moment of mystery when I made history. Is Fire for Fiddle, the Fiend of the Fell." Finally, today, a poem which seems wholly appropriate, given the arrival of Bruce II, and this is from my second collection of sonnets, Repeat Fees, and it's called Feeding Like Rabbits. In brackets, a stolen tale, Grateful Bob to its author. Sibling rabbits, foot, foot, out nibbling in the sun that afternoon. Asked Foot of sister, Foot, I should not feel hungry, but is it our tea time soon? Eldest, Foot, the wisest bunny, spoke to Foot, his greedy younger brother. Mother said, enjoy this playtime, sonny. Tea will be some carrot soup or other. Foot, meanwhile, had found some red berries. Showing to Foot, aren't they pretty? She said. I'll nab it, thought Foot, thinking them cherries. Soon, alas, the youngest rabbit lay dead. Foot, they could not save. Sadly hop home, now one foot in the grave.